Tonight we have another episode of Impact Wrestling on AXSTV. It's only a couple of weeks now until we head to Bound for Glory. Of course, Bound for Glory is Impact Wrestling's biggest show of the year. It's the company's WrestleMania Starrcade, whatever you want to call it. It's Impact Wrestling's biggest show of the year, and we're only a couple of weeks away, so tonight's episode of Impact Wrestling is going to be very, very important as we head towards the biggest pay-per-view of the year. What we're going to be doing in this video is just doing a brief preview of all the big and major talking points expected for tonight's episode of Impact Wrestling on AXSTV. Now, you can see it on the thumbnail for this video. You can see it in front of you right now. The main talking point heading into this episode of Impact Wrestling is the status of Rich Swann. Now, Rich Swann, of course, is the #1 contender for the Impact World Championship. He was on track in storyline. This is all in storyline, of course. He was on track to make a full recovery ahead of his World Championship match against Eric Young in the main event of Bound for Glory. And Rich Swann had done a couple of attacks on Eric Young in previous weeks on Impact Wrestling, but finally last week Eric Young got some revenge on his Bound for Glory opponent. Well, I say revenge. Eric Young kind of started it. Eric Young had attacked this man twice and forced him to retire or re-broke a already broken ankle/leg. So yeah, wow. I call it revenge, but you understand my point. My point being, last week Eric Young attacked Rich Swann once again. Last week, Eric Young was disguised as a worker at a health institute where Rich Swann was, and now the question is Rich Swann going to be cleared to compete at Bound for Glory? Well, first of all, of course, Rich Swann is going to be cleared to complete at Bound for Glory. I have no doubts about that. So, spoilers in that sense, because we are going to see Rich Swann versus Eric Young for the World Championship at Bound for Glory. Absolutely right that it's the main event of Bound for Glory, by the way. It's the best program going on in Impact Wrestling right now. It's been the best program going on in Impact Wrestling since Slammiversary, where they shot the angle. This is exactly how big main event programs should work. It should be that you shoot the big angle at one pay-per-view or the episode after one pay-per-view, and you carry that angle until the next major pay-per-view. So this is absolutely being booked correctly. I think the work that Eric Young has done, I think the work that Rich Swann has done in this feud has been absolutely fantastic. And again, tonight on Impact Wrestling, we're going to hear about the status of Rich Swann. Will he be cleared to compete at Bound for Glory? I still think we might end up in a scenario whereby they go for an unsanctioned match. I do think at some point we will have a gimmick added onto this, some bells, some whistles. What that is, I don't know. Whether it's a no disqualification, falls count anywhere, no holds barred, unsanctioned. I do think there's potential that we could head in that direction. I've been saying that prior to Eric Young even attacking Rich Swann last week on Impact Wrestling TV, because I always felt that in storyline, the question of Rich Swann recovering in time needed to be addressed. I think that's part of the things I've had a slight issue. The only thing I've had an issue in this storyline has been the time frame of recovery for Rich Swann. You have to remember that this is a guy that, 6 weeks ago, maybe a bit longer than that, announced on Impact Wrestling on AXSTV that he had to retire because of the injuries sustained in his various attacks by Eric Young. And a couple of weeks later, he's fighting and he's fine and he's able to compete in the main event of Bound for Glory. You know, I've been a massive, massive fan of this storyline. I'm a massive fan of this program. I think Eric Young's the best just all-round performer in the company right now. I think Rich Swann's absolutely stepped up when it comes to this storyline. However, I must say that some of the logic in this storyline is sometimes difficult to follow. I'll put it like that, because the whole ankle thing, this was a guy that was retiring and now he's okay, and you're not going to exploit that. And in reality, this is what I was saying before, they had to find a way to have Eric Young be able to attack Rich Swann, because the way that this match is going, Eric Young, they're calling him the world-class maniac, but when it comes to Bound for Glory, why wouldn't you just kick the guy in the ankle about 10 times and then you win the match in about 30 seconds? Why wouldn't you just do that? So that's the only issue here, is that I feel some elements of this storyline, particularly around Rich Swann's injured ankle, injured leg, his timetable of his recovery, and how they're going to address this during the match. I just wonder, where is the logic there sometimes? Because I know it's suspension of disbelief. I know it's professional wrestling, and I know sometimes pro wrestling doesn't make sense, and sometimes that makes it so great. But sometimes you do need to be able to watch what you're watching and go, okay, this makes sense. I can get myself into that suspension of disbelief because everything adds up here. And in some elements of this storyline, that's been the problem for me, in that the injuries sustained by Rich Swann, eventually you go, well, why would Eric Young have any issue putting this guy away at Bound for Glory? I think maybe that's the slight problem there. So they're going to address this tonight. As I mentioned, Rich Swann will absolutely say, I think, the way that I think this segment will go tonight is that Rich Swann might say that he's not been cleared to compete at Bound for Glory, but he's going to compete anyway. They do an unsanctioned match or a stipulation, something like that. The issue is, like I said, is at Bound for Glory, how and why wouldn't Eric Young just go after the ankle straight away, get it done, and then you retain the championship? It's an interesting situation, without a doubt. It'll be interesting to see how they book this match, because I do think there are potential pitfalls here. But on the whole, if you've watched any of my Impact Wrestling videos here on the channel, you know that I've been heavily praising this angle and heavily praising the performances of all parties involved. I think it's been absolutely excellent. So we'll find out more about that tonight on Impact Wrestling. We also have scheduled for tonight's shows, it's going to be a Clash of the Giants, as we had Madman Fulton with Ace Austin in his corner going up against the big LG, Doc Gallows, with Kyle Anderson in his corner. Of course, this is ahead of the four-way tag team championship match at Bound for Glory between the current Impact World Tag Team Champions, the Motor City Machine Guns, the North, the Good Brothers, and Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. Who doesn't love two big guys going up against each other? A lot of the time, the matches when you have these two big guys facing off isn't going to be great. But I think this is an exception to the rule here. Obviously, everyone knows Luke Gallows, Doc Gallows can work. Madman Fulton, I think, is underrated in his ability in the ring. And I've got to say that I've enjoyed this tag team storyline so far. I do think it's the merging of two storylines into one kind of deal, in that the North have kind of continued their deal with the Motor City Machine Guns, and Gallows and Anderson have kind of continued their deal with Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. It's kind of merged together. I don't have a problem with that. Everything needs to be bigger as you head to Bound for Glory in a few weeks' time, so I don't have a problem. It's interesting to think what's going to happen coming out of Bound for Glory, and I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but who is going to leave Bound for Glory as the Impact World Tag Team Champions? It's interesting. It's very interesting because there's multiple outcomes here. Obviously, you could keep the titles on the Machine Guns. It depends how long they're going to stay in Impact. I know that Chris Sabin has a contract of Impact Wrestling as a producer and as a talent. Alex Shelley's working on a handshake deal. We know Gallows and Anderson are around for 2 years, and they're kind of one of the crown jewels of Impact Wrestling, a huge signing for them, so maybe they win the titles. But you've also got the North. People will say, well, why would the North win the titles, considering that they were the longest reigning champions? They don't need the title reign. What I will say is, if the North do win, that indicates to me that Ethan Page is very close to signing a new contract with Impact Wrestling. So it's a really interesting dynamic behind the scenes for me when I look at this tag team situation right now. So I'm fascinated to see how this plays out as we head to Bound for Glory in just 11 days' time. We also have Kimberly with Deonna Purrazzo, the Knockouts champion, in her corner, going up against Kylie Ray tonight. Of course, we saw a bit of a different side to Kylie Ray after Knockouts champion Deonna Purrazzo and Kimberly broke the arm of Susie at Victory Road. Obviously, I think this leads to the return of Su Yung, and everyone's not been dying to see the return of Su Yung eventually. I do think this return will happen at Bound for Glory, by the way. But I've said this quite a few times. I personally find Susie way more disturbing and scary than Su Yung. I don't know why. It's just something about, I don't know. You know when you see in those horror movies and you see like people's dolls come to life and the sort of innocent Barbie doll, it's just terrifying. That's what I find really scary about Susie. I don't know. But everyone's known it's just a case of if. It's not a case of if, but when Su Yung returns out of the alter ego of Susie. So I think Su Yung returns at Bound for Glory. But on course of this one, I think Kylie Ray is going to beat Kimberly here. But I'm very excited to see Kylie Ray versus Deonna Purrazzo at Bound for Glory. I think it's going to be an absolutely fantastic match. And in similar way to the World Championship match, this match essentially was booked at Slammiversary. Kylie Ray won the Knockouts Gauntlet at Slammiversary to make her the #1 contender for the Knockouts Championship. And she's getting her opportunity, finally, at Bound for Glory. That's great storytelling. That's long form storytelling. That's building up to a big match. It feels like a big match. I can't really call who's going to win. I think Kylie Ray's been on such a roll just in 2020 in general, but Deonna Purrazzo just keeps having great match after great match after great match as Knockouts champion. I thought her matches against Jordynne Grace were absolutely phenomenal, specifically that Iron Man match at Impact Emergence. So I'm excited for their match at Bound for Glory. I really do think it's going to be something really special. And as I said, I think we are going to see the return of Su Yung. They've teased it for a while with Susie almost showing glimpses and teasers of it. I think now that Susie had her arm broken at Victory Road, this to me says that Su Yung is returning very, very soon. We also have a triple threat tag team match, speaking of knockouts, in which we have Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie teaming up to face off against Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz, and they are against Havoc and Nevaeh. It's an interesting one. Again, the Knockouts division is so strong. It absolutely blows the AEW Women's division out of the water, and some people might say it's not even a fair comparison because AEW's Women's division is just nowhere near Impact's Knockouts division. I think Impact's Knockouts division rivals any division in the world. It absolutely does. Any Women's division out there in the world. It rivals WWE's, it rivals NXT's. It's absolutely fantastic. This is another example of it. Of course, the story in this one is the upcoming wedding between Rosemary and Johnny Bravo. I don't think if there has been a confirmation as to the date of this wedding, you can let me know in the comment section below. As far as I'm aware, there isn't. Maybe they save it for Bound for Glory. Maybe we see a pay-per-view wedding, or maybe they do it on the post-Bound for Glory episode of Impact Wrestling on AXSTV. You know my opinion on this. I'm a big fan of Taya Valkyrie. I'm a big fan of Rosemary. The whole wedding thing, it doesn't really do it for me. I'm a big fan of their work in the ring. What I am a fan of when it comes to this, though, is that it's giving the Knockouts multiple storylines. This has been my biggest issue when it comes to AEW and their women's division, is that they have one storyline most of the time. That's for the title, and that's it, and one match on the show. Whereas you've got Impact Wrestling, and not to say that the show's built around the Knockouts, but they're a cornerstone of the show. They're a fundamental element of the show. They're in multiple segments. They've got multiple storylines and lots of different things going on. So in terms of the content of this storyline, yeah, it's not for me, but I am excited to see this match because I think all 6 knockouts in this match are very, very talented and can do great work. Obviously, I think Taya Valkyrie and Rosemary will come out here as the victors. This also plays in, for me, I think this sets the groundwork for the upcoming return of the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. I believe it has been confirmed that they are going to be returning sometime soon. Plans are in place for the Knockouts Tag Team titles to return. It's just a case of when, not if. We don't have a date for that. Maybe it will be announced for Bound for Glory, or possibly it'll be a deal after Bound for Glory. But seeing that they've already got 3 Knockouts tag teams here that could compete for them says to the depth and quality of the Knockouts division right now. So excited for this one, and most importantly, excited for the return of the Knockouts Tag Team Championships without a shadow of a doubt. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on tonight's episode of Impact Wrestling on AXSTV? What are you looking forward to? What are you excited about? What are your predictions for the matches that have been announced? What else do you think will happen on tonight's show? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoyed chatting with you guys about Impact Wrestling here on the channel. Obviously, as I mentioned, Bound for Glory is only 11 days away, so we're going to be doing a lot of Impact Wrestling content over the next 11 days. We're going to be doing a Bound for Glory watch-along, previews, match previews, predictions, and analysis, all of this sort of stuff, theories, predictions, you name it, we'll be doing it here on the channel if it's about Impact Wrestling. So be sure to check us out over the next 10 days, because we'll be doing a lot of Bound for Glory stuff. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. We're under 25 subscribers away from that magic 1,000 subscriber mark, so if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll be able to monetize this channel and start to do some really exciting stuff. As I mentioned about Impact Wrestling, we're going to be doing a lot of Impact Wrestling content over the next couple of weeks, so be sure to subscribe and you won't miss out any of the Impact Wrestling content, specifically the Bound for Glory watch along, breakdown, previews, predictions, spoilers, all of that great stuff we'll be doing here on the channel. So be sure to subscribe and click that notification bell. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.